I called a meeting this order of the Lee County Board of Education on Tuesday, February 13th, 2024, and I'll entertain our first motion of the evening.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Lee County Board of Education go into closed session under NCGS 143-318.11 A1, A3, A6, and A5 to instruct staff regarding the position of the board in negotiating a contract for purchase of real property, to discuss confidential student information under NCGS 115C-402, to discuss confidential personnel information under NCGS 115C-319 and 115C-321, and 143-318.11 A8 for the purpose of reviewing safety components of school improvement plans and to consult with the board's attorney and maintain the attorney-client privilege.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. We are now in closed session. Lee County Board of Education back into open session. All right. This time I invite you to join us in a moment of silence. Next, and ask that you would stand as we do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ask for our reading of our vision and policy.
For the vision statement, Lee County Schools, in partnership with the community, will provide challenging learning experiences for all students in a safe and supportive environment. We are committed to academic excellence, technological innovations, social responsibility, and lifelong learning. Our success will be demonstrated by the achievement of our students and their positive participation in society.
Thank you. And our policy 2120 Code of Ethics.
Code of Ethics for School Board Members. The Board recognizes that collectively and individually, all members of the Board must adhere to an accepted Code of Ethics in order to improve public education. Members of the Lee County Board of Education should avoid conflicts of interest and appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the Board. Avoid the solicitation and/or acceptance of gifts in return for advice or assistance on matters concerning the operation of the business of the Board. Avoid the misuse of public funds, avoid misrepresentation or falsification of facts, and avoid making confidential information public. The Board accepts the Code of Ethics established by the North Carolina School Boards Association.
Very much. Next, I will entertain a motion for the approval of our agenda, and I believe we have a motion.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, if we could add an item to new business to discuss the NCSBA Legislative Committee nomination.
Okay, I'm going to make that number 2 and make our personnel number 3 under new business.
And then with that, I can make the motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And it's carried. Next is the approval of our minutes of our meeting from January 18th. Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And it is approved. My chairman's report will be rather brief. I begin with saying to everyone, and our board is aware of this, but this is budget season, and a formal presentation to the Board of Education of our staffing study and our pay study by Evergreen will take place this Thursday during our budget work session, this Thursday, February 15th at 5 o'clock. So we will be receiving that presentation from Evergreen. Also, to highlight something that's coming up very soon, it's our parent open house for textbook review. This is going to take place on Wednesday, March the 20th from 5 p.m. until 7 p.m. at W.B. Wicker School. This process only happens every 3 to 5 years. We are at the end of the third year in 2023-2024 school year with our current curriculum. So I wanted to highlight that this evening and to get that out there so parents will be aware of that. You will be hearing more about that in the coming weeks. days and weeks, but that'll be coming up Wednesday, March 20th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at W.B. Wicker. This, actually yesterday, I received an email from Leanne Winter, the Executive Director of the North Carolina School Board Association, and I wanted to make you all aware of this and the thoughts that she shared that I believe are timely. And she wrote in her email last week, the North Carolina School Boards Association launched a social media campaign aimed at supporting public schools. There's nothing more American than a public education, the original level playing field, what America is built on. The debate has become whether to support public schools or some alternative, but that is a false choice, because no matter what type of education makes sense for your family, thriving public schools lift us all. Sharing this message with the parents of North Carolina will help build back our community advocates and bring back that sense of belonging that has always been what public schools are all about. And one of the slogans that they will be sharing is "Public education does the public good." She continues, "Whatever the issue, healthy public schools are the root of our success. The economy grows as the result of an educated, skilled workforce. Educated citizens are less likely to commit crimes. Even if kids don't go to public schools, it's important that the world they enter is full of innovative, educated, civic-minded peers. No matter who you are, parents with kids or singles, retirees or workers, students or graduates, Republicans or Democrats, every North Carolinian benefits from a strong public school system." And I wanted to share those words and those thoughts with you, and be on the lookout for this social media campaign that will be going on this coming year. Also, Gallup just released their State of Schools report, and some of the key findings I want to share briefly, a few. They asked this question: how can educational institutions evolve to serve the learners of today and tomorrow? And so they're talking about K through 12 education, and they highlighted 5 findings, or trends, I should say. 1, parents are highly satisfied with their child's K through K-12 education, even as public satisfaction ties a record low. Number 2, America's students give their schools a B-. Deflation may be keeping parents from getting more involved in their child's education. Number 3. Number 4, K-12 teachers enjoy higher well-being than other professions, but also higher burnout and disrespect. Number 5, engaging teachers through meaningful conversations is an effective strategy for teacher retention. And so I end saying thank you to our teachers and staff. You make it all happen. We want you to know you are appreciated, and thank you for all you do. This time, we'll hear our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will begin my report by asking Ms. Lisa Neal to please come forward as we recognize our National Board Certified Teachers.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. I am super excited because it is that time of year again when we get to recognize our newly National Board Certified teachers, as well as those teachers who have maintained or renewed their National Board certification. So if I could get our honorees to come forward and just stand with me up here. There's Ms. Weir, okay. So as you know, National Board Certification is sort of the gold standard in teacher certification, simply because of the belief that higher standards for teachers means better learning for our students. And I firmly believe that every child deserves to be taught by a National Board Certified teacher. So part of my job as the district coordinator is to obviously recruit teachers to take on this challenge to start this journey. So these teachers that I have with me here are definitely worth honoring and recognizing for their commitment to the classroom and their commitment to their students and education, because they've set themselves apart, saying, I am an accomplished teacher. I've gone through this rigorous certification process. So I have with me tonight Miss Amber West, and she is from Tramway, and she is one of our newly certified National Board teachers. And we also have a couple of other newly National Board certified teachers, but they could not be with us tonight. We also have Julia McNeil from Southern Lee High School, as well as Amy Rosser from Broadway Elementary. So congratulations to those folks as well for joining our group of National Board certified teachers. Okay, and every 5 years, teachers have to renew, or now what they call maintain, their certification. So every 5 years, they go through another process. It's not quite as rigorous as the initial certification, but they are still having to show that they are meeting the accomplished standards set forth by the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. So we have 2 teachers with us tonight who have successfully maintained and renewed their certification. So we have Stephen Roman from Lee County High School, has successfully renewed. Thank you. And we also have Rhonda Weir, who is at Bragg Street. Thank you again to these teachers, again, for their dedication, for their service, for their commitment, and I hope to see great things in the future and go out and recruit more to join us. And I am thrilled to say that we currently have 12 teachers who are currently in some stage of the process, either just beginning their journey or they've taken 1 or 2 components, and they have a couple of more to take. So, the word is getting out there that, this is something that teachers need to do for their own professional growth. So again, I thank you for the opportunity to allow me to recognize these outstanding educators.
How many National Board certified teachers do we have in the district now?
We currently have 49.
49.
We've lost a few due to some turnover and their retirements, of course, but we currently have 49 in the district.
Shooting for 100, at least.
Absolutely, yeah. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
I will say that I'm very proud of one of these up here, Miss West. She was a student of mine years ago, and she did well in spite of me. Very proud of all of our teachers.
Awesome.
Thank
You all very much.
Congratulations. At this time, we would also like to recognize 2 of our board members. The North Carolina School Boards Association Academy of School Boardsmanship offers certificates each year to board members who have gone above and beyond as far as board member training. We have 2 receiving certificates tonight that Ms. Britt will hand out. Our first is a certificate of achievement, which is 101 to 200 hours, from Ms. Sandra Bowen. And we also have a certificate of advanced achievement for 201 to 300 hours of training, and that goes to Ms. Sherry Womack. Thank you for the time and effort that you put in to being a great board member and a trained board member. We appreciate that. Would Ms. Jones please come forward? I was recently notified that our finance department, led by Ms. Kelly Jones, received the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This certificate is the highest form of recognition by governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment of managing funds and being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. I want to thank Ms. Jones and her entire finance staff for all that they do to ensure that we are in good standing and making the best use of our funds. Congratulations. I would also like to give an update on the stadium. Due to some circumstances of the company we were using, not of our own, we had some delays with testing. But needless to say, testing was completed last Friday at the stadium at Lee County High School, and results of the first test showed that both the home and visitor side of the stadium passed. Additional testing was conducted that will take up to 1 week to analyze. However, late Friday evening, the engineer that we've been working with closely called to indicate some major concerns with the second test that was conducted on the visitor side of the stadium. We are waiting for a more detailed report to provide specifics, but the visitor side of the stadium will be condemned based on the findings of the second test, and most likely, nothing will be able to be done to fix that issue. The home side, however, has hope. The second test results indicated that a temporary fix would likely work, and we could potentially begin using that side of the stadium in the near future. Keep in mind, we must await the results of the third test, but so far, those are positive for the home side. This is great news for sporting events and, of course, graduation. This does mean that more than likely, the visitor side will require a complete demolition and rebuild, but we will await the official report from the engineer, but that is where we stand as of this moment. And just wanted to make sure that everybody is aware. So certainly some good news, but some bad news in there as well. Have two additional updates, and I apologize for my lengthy report tonight, but first, they're going to put up, we have been in talks quite a bit about a strategic plan for the district, and just to let everybody know that the district has not had a strategic plan since 2017. If the plan is done correctly, it can be a lengthy process because there's a lot of people involved, a lot of things involved, and you will see up on your screen, and I will pass out to board members up here so that you have a visual. We have developed a draft timeline for consideration, and this is not something that we necessarily need action on, but just something to start as a discussion point moving forward. I want to go through the various steps, and please know as we develop this, we spoke to other districts who have recently gone through the process. We've talked to professionals who do this for a living, and these are certainly some key factors that we must consider in the process. Something that I think is unique that we need to consider is the fact that within the next year, there will be an election, and there will be at least one new board member, and I think we need to take that into account to ensure that both boards, the current board and a new board, has a say-so in a plan that ultimately they will be responsible for making sure that we adhere to. So I want to go through each step very briefly and describe sort of what that is, and then give an estimated timeline, keeping in mind that these are no hard, fast dates. Some may move faster, some may move slower. You may want to spend more time on something. We may want to spend more time on something, but we will first start establishing a committee, a strategic planning committee, and that should involve three groups: those who will implement the plan, those who will be impacted by the plan, and those who will monitor the plan. And that, of course, will include all of our stakeholders. We would then move into a SWOT analysis, which, of course, is measuring our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that will help us determine what we're doing well and what we can do to improve. The committee will then meet, and the committee will meet often over the course of the next year. We will then move into focus groups, various groups, whether it be employees, parents, students, to get their feedback and to make sure that we represent what they want in a strategic plan. From the SWOT analysis, committee meetings, and focus groups, we will be able to derive themes and priorities for the district, and we will take those and probably have several town hall meetings to ensure that all the information that we have gathered truly represents what the community feels like we need in a strategic plan. From there, we will spend several months finalizing the plan and putting it in a document that is presentable to the public and to the board. And of course, throughout the entire process, the board will be involved. So down below, you can see a old-fashioned Gantt chart that kind of shows you how long we would like to spend on each part of that project. Again, that is all up for debate, but wanted the board to have an idea of sort of where we stand at this point on a strategic plan, and we can move faster if the board is not comfortable with this starting in March and going through the next April. But I do think if this is done correctly, it is a process that you spend about a year on. So just wanted to provide that, and certainly open to any feedback that you may have. The last update that I have is we are halfway through the year, and I think it's appropriate to make sure the board and the public knows where we stand as far as our data is concerned. Whether it's, bless you, good, bad, or indifferent, I think we need to know where we stand and sort of some of the steps that we are doing. And data can be difficult to understand, so I will do my best, and schools use lots of acronyms, so I will do my best to explain sort of where we are and what this data means. So the data sets that we have at this point in the school year that I think tell us some important information, we have in-class testing, which is our K-3 reading. We have iReady data in grades 3 through 8 with reading and math. We have North Carolina check-in data. We have fall EOC results for our high schools. And then we recently have a pandemic recovery update that I think will show you whether or not we are bouncing back in certain areas. I want to start with M-Class data, and just to explain what M-Class is. It is a universal screener, and I forgot that I have copies of this for the board in case you can't see. So what is M-Class? It is a universal screener that measures the development of foundational reading skills of students. So this test is ultimately determining whether or not students are reading on grade level, below or above. So let's dive into, you will hear a lot of acronyms, BOY and MOY. BOY is beginning of year data, which obviously was at the beginning of the year. Where did students fall? And mid-year data. On the left-hand side, you will see where we fall as a district. On the right-hand side, you will see where the state falls. We do not have current state data for MOY or middle of year because that testing is still taking place throughout several districts in the state, so they've not yet finalized those state averages. Important to note that this data represents the percentage of students with a low risk of falling below grade level proficiency. So getting very specific, if you look up at second grade students, at beginning of year data, it's stating that 48% of second grade students have a low risk of falling below grade level proficiency. And of course, if you compare that down below, that has increased to 53% at mid-year. So you definitely want to see that mid-year, that beginning of year and mid-year change, and you can see that in several of our areas. You're going to see the biggest jump, obviously, in kindergarten, and that's what you want to see, because those students have gone from being at home or in preschool to being in school, and if we're doing what we're supposed to, you should see double-digit gains in beginning of year ability to read and mid-year. So just wanted you to have an idea of what that M-Class data looks like, which is a good predictor of how students will perform later on end of grade test. We also have iReady data. This is an online program used for both reading and math that show where students are currently performing and what they need to do in order to get to the next level. And you're going to see a lot of colors here, but this will make a little bit more sense. Just know that green is good, yellow is okay, and red is not good. This shows on this specific chart math, and you will see grades 3, 4, and 5. The top bar says MOY, that's middle of the year. The bar right under that is beginning of the year. So what you want to see and what those grades mean, if they are green, that means the student is on or above grade level. If they are yellow, that means they are 1 grade level below. If they are red, they are 2 or more grade levels below. So if you look at the beginning of year, what you want to see is more green and less red at the middle of the year, and obviously even more green and less red at the end of the year. Luckily, that is what we are seeing, which is a good thing in math as far as grades 3, 4, and 5 go. And then I will flip over to a chart that shows you reading. Reading is where we are struggling a little bit right now, that you don't see. I mean, each of those have improved and you see more green, but not at the same level as math. Moving on to middle school, grades 6, 7, and 8, you see math. And so just so that everybody has an idea of what this data shows, and this is just one data point, but if you look at 6th grade math, this told us that 43% of students at the beginning of the school year were 2 or more grade levels below where they should be in math. And unfortunately, at the middle of the year, we still had 43% of students. Now, there are several factors you have to take into account. Did the students take this assessment seriously? It's testing different things, but it is vital data for us to use to drive instruction and to hopefully drive improvement. And then finally, you have reading. And again, same with grades 3 through 5. Reading is where we are struggling in middle school as well. The bright light that we have, and I think that shows in M-class data, is the state's move to the science of reading, which is ultimately a whole new way of teaching a child to read. The data shows that students are performing at a higher level in regards to reading after having gone through that type of training and teaching. The unfortunate thing is, those students are currently sitting in 1st and 2nd grade, and it'll be a couple years before they are tested. So I do think that there is going to be change, but that change may be a couple years coming. Finally, I want to include North Carolina check-in data, and there's a lot here that you need to keep in mind. These are assessments that are developed by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and they are assessing standards. This is meant to help teachers drive future instruction. This data is not to be used as a predictor for how a student will perform on a test. So when you see, for example, some that's 48%, that doesn't mean that they are likely to be 48% on the end of course test. What those numbers indicate is that's the average percent correct on a certain standard overall. So as we look into that data, and they are only offered in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in elementary school, you will see sort of where we stand with check-in 1 and check-in 2. It's also important to know that check-in 1 test completely different standards than check-in 2. So you cannot look at 3rd grade math check-in 1 at 41.3 and say, well, we're doing better on check-in 2 at 48.7 because it tested a totally different subset of standards. So we are told very often by the department, do not make those comparisons and do not use this data to determine whether a child is going to necessarily pass or fail an end of course or end of grade test. You should use it to help you determine, did the children understand the standards that we just taught? And if they did not, their reteaching needs to occur. You see their check-ins with middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Important to note that many of our middle school students that are high flyers in 8th grade take Math 1 versus Math 8. And so you will see that Math 1 addition there, but the second check-in for Math 1 is not scheduled until mid-March. And finally, we also have check-ins in high school. Biology is broken up into 4 different themes that you will see listed there: molecular, structure, and function, ecosystems, and genetics. So that's why you see it outlined that way. But those are the results for our check-ins in high school. We are meeting with principals. Principals are meeting with their teachers. They are meeting in professional learning communities to disaggregate this data. And we are using this data to help drive instruction and hopefully drive improvement. Finally, the only set of results that we have, and these are not official because we have to wait, unfortunately, until early fall next year for the state to make those official, but looking at EOC results for our high schools, and I decided to compare fall of '22 to fall of '23. You will see a dip in biology. You will see a gain in English 2, a significant gain in Math 1, and a small dip in Math 3. What I think is important to note with Math 1 is, if you remember what I just stated about middle school, Most of your high-flying students who do well in math take Math 1 in 8th grade. So those students remaining in high school that take Math 1 often struggle in math, which is why you see a significantly lower percentage as far as that proficiency rate. Finally, I want to share some data that was recently released by the Education Recovery Scorecard that shows how we are performing as far as bouncing back from the pandemic. This report only looked at grades 3 through 8 in math and reading, so that is what I will put up. But that graph, the gray lines represent where we were as a district prior to the pandemic. Those dotted blue lines represent the pandemic, and you can, of course, see a drop. The green line represents where we are performing after the pandemic. So this right here is math performance for grades 3 through 8, and you can see an upward trend that we certainly hope continues to get us at least back on par with where we were before the pandemic, but we certainly want to be better than we were before the pandemic.
Can I clarify, this is Lee County scores, not state scores?
Correct. This
Okay.
is specific to Lee County schools.
Okay.
And this report broke this down by each county in the state.
I had seen the state one. I had not seen our county one. Okay.
Same graph for reading, and you can see a huge dip during the pandemic with reading. The next two charts, or the final two charts, are similar, but it does three things. It shows the arrow to the left, which is the decline during the pandemic. The arrow right beside it is our rebound after the pandemic. The arrows on the far left are Lee County schools. Those in the middle are North Carolina. And then this report compared our districts to what they considered similar districts. And for this report, they chose Moore County, Duplin, Chatham, Granville, and Beaufort County schools. And of course, this is specific to math. I think one positive here is that as a district, we have had a more significant gain since the pandemic than the state, and as we compare to surrounding districts. And then the final slide will show you reading. I'm well aware that the pandemic is over, and I know we are beyond that, but I think that we have to have the conversation that we are still having impacts from an educational standpoint from the pandemic that will unfortunately linger for several years to come. And so we are going to work as hard as we can to get out of this, but as you can see, there was quite the significant decline during that period of time. These look familiar. You saw these same bullets when I presented data at the beginning of the year. We do have a lot to be proud of. There are a lot of bright spots. There are a lot of things that none of these scores did measure, but at the same time, we have a lot of work to do. And I think that's clear from this data. We will work hard, we will analyze, and we will fix what is not working. And we've been working hard to do that all year. I think it's also important to say out loud that students and staff are more than a test score. This is how we are measured. And we will continue to try to do our best, but our students and staff are certainly more than a test score. I think it's important for the board to remember that improving academic performance takes time. We did not get to this state overnight, and we will not get out of it overnight, but we will work as hard as we can to get out of it as quickly as we can. Just as a reminder, we've got to remain focused on students, especially as we go into an election season. We have to keep the focus on students, and that includes parents, employees, the community, and the board. Our focus must remain on students, and we cannot get distracted. And together, we will move ahead. And so I will entertain any questions that you may have regarding that data.
Is it possible, Dr. Dawsonbach, to put this online where our schedule's at, under your comments, so the community can see it and zoom in better?
Yes, ma'am, we will do that.
Okay, and the other question had to do with the strategic planning. You said, how long ago has it been since we had a strategic plan?
I believe the last plan expired at the end of the 2017 school year.
So now that we have a new superintendent, and I don't want to say it, we don't have a completely new direction, but we are more focused than previously. Before we even start the strategic plan, there's things that are very key, such as the purpose, our mission statement, and our vision. Is there going to be a time where the board gets with you as well, and we review those three components that are necessary before the strategic planning starts?
So you certainly will. In talking to the experts that have done this, they recommend that take place as far as number 5, themes and priorities, after we have done a SWOT analysis and had some focus group feedback. And the board certainly will be a part of one of those focus groups. So at that point, we will discuss all the data that we've gathered from the SWOT analysis and of the focus groups to determine what our mission and vision should look like, whether it should change, if it should, how it should change. No other questions? That concludes my lengthy report.
Thank you, Dr. Dawson-Bach. This time, we have public comments. We have 2 individuals that have signed up. If you would state your name, give your address, and you have 3 minutes. Our first is Marjorie Gray. Okay. Next one is Kenny. I'm not sure how. Okay, come on up.
Honored to address you, Board. I'm Kenny Shue. I'm your North Carolina 13 congressional candidate. I respect very much the diverse interests that are here at this board. I know that you guys have a lot of diverse backgrounds, and that means a lot. We're living in a time right now where the education system is being questioned, and probably for good reason. I wanted to come because I wanted to speak about one particular issue that is impacting Lee County, and that is ESL. ESL right now is a tough issue to address because oftentimes it is a proxy for illegal immigrants and children of illegal immigrants to come into the school system. And my ask is of you guys to provide some data as to what percentage of those ESL kids are not citizens coming into the school system. The reason why is because I think that you guys have a cap that says that ESL can only be about 10% of your school funding. But one source tells me that about 17% of your children are in ESL. So you're underfunding ESL, and I think voters deserve to know what percentage of some of those funds are going to children that are coming from illegal immigrant backgrounds. I also think it is just a matter of common public trust to provide that data to the federal government in a time right now when people are wondering how much of our public funds is going to support illegal immigrants, how much of our public funds is going to support education of our citizens. This is an issue you can debate at the policy level, at the federal government level. That's part of the reason why I'm running for Congress, because I want to debate these issues at the public level. But you have a policy in your Lee County that says that you cannot solicit a person to see if they come from an illegal immigrant background or not. And I ask you politely to revise that policy, because the public deserves to know. It is a matter of public order. It is a matter of government provision. It is a matter of federalism that the public and the federal government deserves to know for the purpose of saving the ESL program so that it could be better run, save taxpayers money, and be a policy issue that is presented to the public at a time when we need it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Next are our non-action items. First up, financial report. Ms. Jones.
You have before you the financial statements. Open to any questions that you may have.
I guess the only one I had, have we been invoiced for the final payment to Evergreen now that they've provided reports, or is that still pending?
Still pending. Also, you have before you the board expenses. And I'm open to any questions for those.
Any questions of Ms. Jones? All right, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Our board attorney says no report. Is it still no report?
The only reports were given in closed session.
Okay, thank you. He is working. We want you to know that, so. Committee reports. First up is our curriculum and instruction, and I believe Ms. Bowen is going to take that report this evening.
Yes, sir. The Curriculum and Instruction Committee met last Wednesday at Deep River Elementary School, and I served and chaired that committee in the absence of Ms. Womack. Thank you for that opportunity. That being said, we had a great deal of that meeting taken up with the discussion of the various summer achievement programs that the district is going to be offering. We have the summer achievement programs, the Read to Achieve programs coming up. Parents, you'll be notified in short notice. You'll be notified that your child is eligible for participation in one of these summer achievement programs. Often the question is the child required to attend this program? The answer is they are not required, but it is highly recommended that any child who qualifies for the enrichment during the summer, what that means is that they were not proficient on their end of grade testing. And if they go for the additional summer achievement program, they get an opportunity for that retest, which is critical to really establishing where they are. We all know that sometimes kids just don't take the first go-round very seriously, and then once they get in that smaller environment with more intense instruction, boom, the results that we anticipate happen. So please keep that in mind, parents. If you see those coming through, to sign your child up for the summer achievement programs, the Read to Achieve programs, and the various academic ones. We also had a lot of summer programs coming up, much like you might have seen last year, from culinary camps to STEM camps to you name it. There's an opportunity for your child's learning to continue during the summer and to not dissociate from our school system. I had made the comment at the committee meeting that we are indeed a year-round district. There is always something good happening in Lee County schools. So do take advantage of those opportunities. Additionally, we had Ms. Eggers to present the 2-year cycle of the calendars. And so when we get to that in new business, I'm actually going to ask her to come forward and talk about those calendars briefly. I think there is a minor discrepancy in some dates that she wanted to make sure we were all clear on. But I think this is the first time that we've done this, that we have tried to put out a 2-year calendar so that parents and teachers and staff can plan not just for this year, but for additional years. And I think that's a fantastic thing for families. I think it's good for students too, to know what's happening and when. And then finally, we had a report from Ms. McCormick and Ms. Hayslip that are working kind of as our ad hoc curriculum and instruction committee, because we went and hired that guy to be our superintendent. So they have stepped in and done a fantastic job with our low-performing schools plans, curriculum improvement plans, and so forth. And they reported on some of that. And I was all excited to talk about some of the high points they pointed out, and then Chris just did that for us. So I loved the data tonight that was shared with the Curriculum and Instruction Committee of some of the highlights, as well as some of the pitfalls and some of the areas that we still have a little bit of challenge. So it was very good to get that information. We have a couple of items previously mentioned, the Summer Achievement Program and the calendars on our various consent agenda and the new business this evening. And our next Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, March 13th, and that'll be right here at Lee County High School. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
you so much. Our next report is from Facilities and Technology. Mr. Ladati.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 updates from our F&T meeting on January 23rd. The first of which we discussed the Lee County High School Stadium. Most of those updates are already out of date, so information is coming fairly quickly on that particular item. But I did want to mention that the committee requested any pre-work be done to expedite a bidding process if and when a bidding process were to occur. If there was anything that could potentially be done to speed that up, committee asked the staff to remain aware and look for opportunities. And I also wanted to mention, just as a reminder to the public, that Lee County Schools discussed an expedited bid process with DPI last month, and we were told that our situation doesn't qualify for an expedited bid process. But we did explore that. The second item we discussed is a bulk technology purchase. This is the second of 3 bulk technology purchases that the district is doing this year. It was the unanimous opinion of the committee to approve this purchase in the amount of $298,686.44, and refer that to the Finance Committee. The funding source is Title I funds from the individual schools, and we discussed, sort of had a check-in of sorts on the bulk purchase process itself, because it's a fairly new process this year. Ms. Messimer mentioned that they had tweaked a few of the request processes from the individual schools and the payment processes, but overall it seemed to be working fairly well. And we also discussed the sustainability of this process using Title I funds for the majority of the purchases year over year. And we were told that it was seen as a sustainable process and a sustainable funding source. And the last item we had was an E-rate update, and we learned that since Lee County is an E-rate Category 1 district, that we qualify for a 90% E-rate discount on our bus Wi-Fi service. So that should save the district close to $72,000 next year. So that was always a great update to receive, and I appreciate Ms. Messimer for looking out for that opportunity. And I believe that is all that I had for F&T. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next report is from, your next meeting is?
I'm sorry. Next meeting is February 27th at 4:30 at the Hines Education Building.
Our next report is Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Finance Committee met and had several items on the agenda. The first 2 I'll touch on real quick. Mr. Ladati also covered in F&T, but we discussed that bulk technology purchase number 2. Again, that is tech purchases being made 3 times a year, and the idea there is to consolidate and streamline those purchases and hopefully utilize bulk purchase discounts as much as possible. That list of items is in the packet for tonight, and again, the total purchase price is $298,686, and funding source is Title I funds from those individual schools. The next is the E-rate funding update. So again, Jamie touched on that, but E-rate's a federal program, so it allocates money from fees on our phone bills to help cover Wi-Fi and technology in schools and libraries. Lee County Schools filed for that E-rate funding to begin covering 90% of the bus Wi-Fi connectivity, which was already a service that the board had approved to fund previously, but essentially this would save us around $80,000 annually on top of other savings already provided by that program. We discussed the Link HR module. So the performance audit recommendation 4-1 told us to pursue that Link HR update to streamline work done between HR and the finance departments for personnel, which includes reduction in manual data entry and necessity for paper documents. The cost of that module in training is $23,606, and there will be an annual expense minus the training portion of that. This requires board approval since the total link contract to include finance and HR modules goes over $50,000. That is listed on the consent agenda tonight for approval. We talked banking services RFP that came down January 19th. So Ms. Jones made a really good, concise summary of those proposals that were received. There were 3. That is in our packet tonight, so feel free, as you review that, to reach out and ask any questions you may have about the information. Ms. Jones will be reaching out to some other districts for references on those proposals, and we'll bring that feedback to the committee coming, I think, at our next meeting. And the idea there is to provide a recommendation to the full board for consideration during the March meeting. That contract start date is July 1st, so there's, just wanted to highlight, there's plenty of time to do that due diligence between now and then, so happy to take the extra time to do that. We did have a brief discussion on the 24-25 budget, and I would just remind everybody that our first budget working session is this Thursday, February 15th at 5 p.m. here in this room. The second one is February 19th, also at 5 here. And then the last thing the committee discussed was the staffing study. So we received that final document in mid-December, and just to briefly talk about that, there were 6 recommendations, and this is me summarizing. Most of those were related to standardizing job titles and descriptions and methods of allocating months and hours of work. There were no areas to note of gross overstaffing, and actually, to the contrary, we found that we're pretty understaffed in the custodial department. And with that, the staffing study is now coupled with the salary study, which we received just yesterday and got printed copies today. So I hope everybody will get some time to review that before these budget discussions, because I do think there's a lot of good information that will set us up to support any requests we make of the county. So that was all for committee. I did also want to touch just very briefly on our informal discussion that we had with the county this past week. So we did talk about the staffing and pay studies, just high level, no numbers involved with that. We talked through enrollment numbers from beginning of year till now, and just kind of talked about how that correlates to the projections we made based on TRC and building permit data that the county provides. And I do expect the frequency of those meetings to probably ramp up here as we go through our board discussions and get some specifics that we can then discuss with county and take any questions to bring back to the board. So that's all I've got. The next finance committee meeting was rescheduled and will be held February 29th at 4:30 p.m., which is a new time, a little earlier, at the Hines Education Building. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So much. Next is our policy committee report.
Mr. Chair and the board, the policy's coming up for first reading, so it's just information purposes only. So I just kind of want to go through kind of what the committee talked about. We had policy 4333, which is weapons, bomb threats, terrorist threats, and clear threats to safety. Policy 4300, the Code of Student Conduct. And policy 4302, the school plan for management of student behavior. I had all those brought to the committee for discussion over an incident that happened a month prior. And it was mentioned in the last board meeting. And after discussion and review of those policies, the committee felt that no changes were needed. So we just decided to move on with the meeting. So the following policies, the recommended updates for policy 1310, 4002, which is parental involvement, and policy 4720, surveys of students. The parental involvement continues to adjust to the general statutes that are coming down from the state, being since they passed the law. And so as a requirement from the state, we have to adjust those general statutes to that. And the same thing with surveys of students. So that was brought for first reading. And then policy 7100, recruitment and selection of personnel. After discussion, board member Bowen made the motion to eliminate, there was a section in there, 40 or older language, It made it sound like you could not apply if you were 40 or older. So that was a great catch by her. And so with that little bit of adjustment, and everything else was submitted for first reading. And then required updates, policy 4110 was immunization and health requirements for school admissions, and then policy 5210 was distribution and display of non-school material, and policy 7130 was licensure, all of those general statute updates from the state. And so with that being said, our next policy meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 20th at 5 p.m. at the Hines Education Building, Assembly Room. Thank you.
Thank you all. As I have said and will continue to say in the coming months, the work of the board really takes place in our committees, and you are invited. It's open. You can come. You can go online. You can see the agenda, not just of our committees, but the board. It has links where you can go and have all this that we have here, the packets of material. It's there, it's available, and just want to make sure that you all know that this is an open, transparent process, and we want you to look and learn and listen, and then if you have questions, let us know. And just thank all of our board members for the hard work that you do in these meetings. And the staff that supports us in that as well. Thank you as well. All right, next item on our action items, first item on our action items is the approval of our consent agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And it carries. We have no unfinished business. Move right to our new business. The first item there is our 2024-25 and 25-26 traditional Lee Early College and Tramway elementary school calendars. And yield to Ms. Bowen.
Thank you, sir. We did in the Curriculum and Instruction Committee have a look at these calendars, and I would love to invite Ms. Eggers to the podium if she would, to kind of discuss the process that went into the calendar selection and some of the uniqueness of this two-year plan.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your time tonight. As you are aware, we decided in Calendar Committee that we would like to put forth a two-year calendar proposal. We feel that this would be best for students, staff, and mostly parents and families just in that planning process. But in looking at what this board wanted, based off of last year's board approval, we did move to propose a calendar that would inherently violate calendar law. And so we did that for both years of the calendars that are being proposed. Many benefits were stated as such. You know, it keeps consistency with the schedule, exams before the end of the semester for first semester. So feedback from all stakeholders involved kind of overwhelmingly said, yes, we want to do this again. And then in looking at a couple of other pieces of feedback, a Wednesday start versus a Monday start was a big ask for a lot of our teachers and parents. And so we decided to put that into this year's calendar. We did discuss the number of instructional days where this calendar, both of the calendars that you'll see, propose 174 student days for all three, LEC, the traditional, and Tramway, which gives us some wiggle room in terms of the hours for instruction. That's what we are meeting that requirement under. And then certainly we met calendar law in all of the other ways, minus the start before or start after the August 26th and end closest to June 11th date. Any questions on that component of the calendar?
I guess the only one I had, So I appreciate the two-year plan, because I've been hearing questions about, when's the board voting on calendar, so I think that's a good move there. The only question with that is the idea going forward, so next year the board would look at, again, the next 2 years and stay 2 years ahead?
That's correct. We would like to move them in rolling approvals, so that we're always kind of ahead of the game.
Good.
Yes.
So basically, the two calendars forward are similar, just like last year's. And I just wanted to commend you guys and for moving forward. As you know, I was not available because of my mother passed. But I am very proud of this, and I'm very proud that we're actually trying to do something for 2 years in advance. I would just like to point out to the board, in case someone says, well, this is kind of strange, we're doing it 2 years and then maybe another board next year. The board still has the ability to go back and change the calendar. So I'm 100% for this, so thank you so much.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Thank you.
You go. How close is the traditional to tramway? So we have a lot of parents who have students at tramway and in our traditional schools. How close do they line up?
So in talking with Ms. Cummings, she has a lot of input on that calendar. We did decide to leave the fall break and the spring break for traditional calendar the same with tramway. Now, that did split their intersessions up a little awkwardly, but in understanding that tramway is our only year-round, we wanted to make sure that we gave space for that for our parents. So very similar. They end at the same date still as well, which is something that we will continue to need to consider as we move forward with their calendar and how it fits with everything. I would like just to make my clerical errors now, just in case someone was going to maybe point those out. So for the Lee Early College calendar, what is on the actual grid is correct, but what the dates that are typed out in text, there's an error there. So it should say the first day of school would be August the 8th versus the 18th. So I just got a little excited there with the one. The 25-26 for LEC, no changes there. For tramway, 24-25, again, what is on the grid is correct in terms of the days that we've counted, and these have been approved in advance by Mr. Rawson as well. So it should say July 15th versus where it's typed out the 13th. And then on the 25-26 calendar, it should say July 14th versus August 14th. So just minor things, but I will work to do better next time. Further questions?
I had a question on similar to Patrick, the alignment with the college, or the fall break and spring break align with the college for the high schools?
So we always try to look at their academic calendars. However, they're not published yet.
Okay.
So we had to do our best guess scenario based off of what history has proven.
And then I wanted to commend the size of the calendar committee, because it looked like you had about 20, 25 participants. And there was also a message in the notes that the principals were soliciting feedback from parents, and I wanted to know if there was any feedback, positive or negative, received from parents in that solicitation.
So that solicitation would have come through the members of the calendar committee, and overwhelmingly they were in agreement. There was always a few comments, well, I'm fine with a Monday start, that sort of thing, but overwhelmingly I think people understood that this calendar that we're proposing is the best thing for students, and so that's what we've got to keep moving forward with.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Lee County Board of Education approve the 2024, 2025, and 25-26 traditional Lee Early College and Tramway Elementary School calendars.
Second.
I think that was a unanimous second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. And it is approved.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we approve the personnel report.
Right. Let me hold up just a moment on that, Mr. Kelly. We've got the one addition. This has to do with literally a decision to be made by the board of nominating someone from our board to serve on the North Carolina School Board's committee, the legislative committee. And so that's what we're presenting or opening up for nomination. And I think we have a nomination.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Sherry Womack to serve on that committee. I just think the support she provided in that original calendar update, as far as resolutions to the county and the state and working with state legislature to make sure that they're aware of the hurdles that law causes. I just feel like having that voice on this committee would be beneficial to not just us, but the state.
Are there any other nominations?
Mr. Chair, I would love to nominate Jamie Ladati to serve on the Legislative Committee.
Any other nominations? All right, so we have two candidates for nomination. I'll go in the order that they were nominated. The first being Sherry Womack. All those in favor of Sherry, say aye.
Aye.
And for purposes of Susan getting the numbers, please raise your hand for Sherry Womack. Those in favor. Okay. And then those in favor of Jamie Ladati. Raise your hand. So it looks like the chair will have to break the tie, and that will go to Sherry Womack. So Sherry is our representative on the legislative committee. Now, Mr. Kelly.
I make a motion, we approve personnel.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. This will be unusual because we did finish all of our regular discussion items in our closed session. This is unusual. Hopefully, we will not have to do this, but we will need to go back in to closed session for a legal presentations.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Lee County Board of Education go into closed session under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, subsection A3, to consult with the board's attorney and maintain the attorney-client privilege.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. We are in closed session. County Board of Education back into session.
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.